What if the reason nothing is working is because you're doing exactly what they told you to do? If you're watching this, you probably know the language of healing better than most therapists. You can name your attachment style, your trauma responses, your triggers. You've done the work, and yet something inside you feels still fundamentally broken. I sat across from a psychologist in a private clinic. I just paid 150 euros for my first appointment. Money I didn't even have at the time. I was on state benefits. I'd scrape it together because I was that desperate. And I remember trying to explain what I was feeling, the heaviness, the patterns I couldn't really break, the sense that something was wrong with me at a fundamental level. And he kept nodding and taking notes, but his eyes were somewhere else. He asked clinical questions, he offered textbook responses, he suggested cognitive strategies I'd already tried. There was no recognition, no real seeing. And I walked out thinking, he doesn't understand. He can't feel what I'm describing. And if even the experts don't understand, then maybe I really am beyond help. And that thought really terrified me because I'd already spent thousands on healing. I'd already tried so many approaches and I was still waking up in the same heaviness, still trapped in the same patterns. Maybe you felt that too, that moment when even the professionals look at you like they're reading from a manual that doesn't include your chapter. Well, here's what nobody tells you. The harder you try to heal, the more you reinforce the very patterns keeping you stuck. So by the end of this video, you'll understand why forcing yourself to heal actually blocks your healing. And you'll learn a vibrational approach that works with your body's natural rhythm instead of exhausting it further. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a vibrational healer who helps people heal their difficult emotions and emotional patterns so they can live much better lives. And if that interests you, I welcome you wholeheartedly to my channel and join my free masterclass, Move Past What's Been Keeping You Stuck. Links in the description or in the pinned comment. So let's start here. I want you to think about the moment you realize the expert can't help you either. That's the moment that something breaks inside. I paid over 10,000 euros just to understand what was wrong with my body. 10,000. I was living on state benefits. 1,300 euros a month to cover rent, food, medical bills, everything. Had no family, nothing. I kept going back to these clinics, to the specialist, to the therapist, because I thought if I just found the right one, if I just invested enough, someone would finally see what was actually happening to me. The psychologist I saw every week charged 150 euros per session. That's over 10 months. And do you know what he told me? That there wasn't really so much wrong with me, that I was very rational, that I just had a few things to overcome. And I sat there, listened to him, and I didn't feel heard, I didn't feel seen, I didn't feel understood. And the thought that crept in, the one that scared me the most was this. If I'm working with a good psychologist and it's not really doing anything, I really must be quite messed up. And that's what happens when you keep trying and nothing works. You stop blaming the modality and you start blaming yourself. Every failed attempt becomes proof that you are beyond help. Every expert who shrugs becomes another voice saying, maybe you're just broken in a way nobody can fix. And the worst part, you keep going anyway, because, well, what else are you supposed to do? Have you been there? Well, drop me a comment if that thought has ever crossed your mind, because you're absolutely not alone in this. But here's what I didn't realize at that moment. I didn't realize what I was doing wrong. I want you to think about the last healing thing you tried. Maybe it was a workshop, a retreat, a new therapist. Be honest. Part of you thought this might be the one, didn't it? The thing that finally cracks you open and puts you back together whole. We're conditioned to believe healing works like a movie montage. You show up broken and something intense happens and music swells. Cut to you 6 months later, thriving. And I bought into that story completely. Every modality I tried, every session I booked, I was secretly hoping for that magic moment, the breakthrough, the release, the thing that would flip the switch from broken to fixed. But here's what actually happens. We're looking at it as there's one moment that will heal everything. Like it's something that will come from outside of us and it's going to save us. And from then on, everything is going to be fine. And that's just not at all the case. Healing doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt, doesn't show up in 1 3-hour session that changes everything forever. It unfolds slowly, quietly, in ways you won't even notice while they're happening. And the problem is, when you're waiting for fireworks, you really miss those gentle shifts. You discount the subtle realizations, you keep searching for the next big thing instead of letting the work you've already done settle into your system. You stay in consumer mode, always looking outside for the answer instead of turning inward and letting your own rhythm guide you. And if you've ever felt like you're stuck in that searching loop, join my free masterclass, which is specifically designed for people like you and me. It's made to give you a real and realistic starting point. And it's always in small groups, so you'll be seen and heard, or you can stay as anonymous as you want. And it's live, so don't forget to come. Your hands work. You can pick up a glass, drink water, put it back down without thinking. Now imagine stopping mid-reach to study the angle of your wrist, the exact grip pressure of each finger, the muscular sequence of your swallow. You'd never finish the drink. That's what we're doing with our emotions as well. We think the answer is in understanding it better. One more book, one more therapy model, one more perfectly articulated explanation of why we feel broken. So we dig and analyze and we map our triggers and we know our attachment style and we can describe our childhood wounds in flawless psychological terms. We're still stuck because knowing doesn't heal anything. I need you to hear that. Awareness matters, yes, but there's a big difference between insight and obsessive analysis. You can have every explanation in the world and still wake up heavy. You can understand exactly why you do what you do and still repeat the same pattern tomorrow. The more you try to figure it out, the more you live in your head. And trauma doesn't live there, it lives in your body, in your energy, in places words alone can't touch. You can't talk yourself out of trauma. No matter how many insights you collect, no matter how many books you read, how clearly you can trace your patterns back to their origin, understanding is not the same as healing. And this is where most of us get stuck. I worked with a man who spent 20 years in therapy, 20 years. He understood exactly what his narcissistic mother had done to him. He could map every single manipulation, every guilt trip, every boundary violation. He had the language, he had the awareness. And when he came to me, he said something I'll never forget. He said, "None of it reached me because talking about the problem keeps you at the level of the mind. And trauma doesn't live in your mind, it lives in your nervous system, in your body, in your energy field. It's a vibrational pattern that runs underneath your thoughts. You can understand why you people please all you want. That understanding alone will not stop your body from going into panic mode when someone asks you for something." And this is what flower essences do differently. They don't give you more information. They shift your vibrational frequency and they work at the energetic level where the pattern actually exists. Not through force, not through digging. They adjust your internal frequency so gently that you don't even notice it happening in the moment. It's not about understanding the lock, it's about finding the key that fits. Within 3 weeks of starting his blend, that man was able to cry for the first time in decades. Not because he suddenly understood something new, because something inside of him unlocked energetically. The shift happened first and the insight followed. Have you ever had a moment where your body responded before your mind understood? I'm sure you had. Let me know in the comments because that is exactly the shift I'm describing. You just feel it. But that's not even the part most people struggle with. Every time you take a remedy, there's a tiny vibrational shift happening inside you that you probably won't notice in the moment. And this is why most people miss their own transformation. They're waiting for fireworks. They're waiting for some massive breakthrough moment where everything clicks and suddenly they're healed. Now, you can have big breakthroughs with Bach Flower Remedies, don't get me wrong. You can have big moments of epiphanies, absolutely. But when it comes to big healing processes, the bigger the healing goes, the more subtle it becomes. You might not even realize something has shifted until months later when you're in a situation that used to wreck you and you notice your reaction is completely different. Or you might never notice because you've changed. You don't care anymore. You're not vibrating there anymore. I've already told you the story. I've coincidentally worked on my fear of spiders, and I only realized it had changed until I saw a spider and my body didn't panic. The reaction was so calm, so natural that I almost even missed the fact that I transformed from a lifelong phobia. So how does this actually look like day to day? So first, you stop micromanaging the outcome. You're not checking for results every 3 hours. You're not analyzing whether it is working all the time. You're simply noticing without judgment what's taking up space in your life right now. You notice it, you take the remedy that addresses the exact pattern, and then you let it work. You don't force it. You don't dig around trying to figure out why you feel that way or where it came from. You just witness it and move on. The difference between awareness and analysis is everything here. Awareness is clean. You see the pattern. You acknowledge it. You let the remedy address it energetically. And analysis is exhausting. It's the endless loop of why and how and what does it mean about me. That's the trap that keeps you stuck. Bach Flower Remedies work whether you're analyzing them or not, because they're shifting your vibrational frequency at a quantum level. Your job isn't to understand every mechanism. Your job is to show up, take the remedies, and trust the process. And trust looks like this. You score your feelings at the start. 3 weeks later, the intensity has dropped, but the shift was so gradual, you didn't notice it happening. And that's why I give people a simple diary template, not to overanalyze, but to create proof for the skeptical mind so it can relax and let the remedies do their work. Because once you see that the remedies are working, you stop needing to control the process. You stop waiting for the big moment, even if you will have big moments with Bach Flower Remedies. You start walking with yourself gently instead of running through your healing like it's a race you need to win. Sometimes the situation that proves the shift hasn't even presented itself yet. You take a remedy for fear, but you won't know it worked until you're confronted with that fear again and your response is different. The healing happened quietly in the background while you were simply living your life. You're not in a therapy room dissecting yourself for hours. You're taking a few drops of remedies 4 times per day and continuing to live, and the layers just peel off gently one at a time without the drama. But here's what most people don't realize about those layers. You don't need another modality. You need permission to stop fighting yourself. You're not someone who's broken beyond repair. You're someone whose system has been waiting for you to listen instead of force. The next video breaks down the exact remedy blend that unlocked my real shift after 2 decades of nothing working and why it worked when therapy couldn't touch it. Thanks so much for being here with me. I loved making this video, and I'll see you in the next one.